What if I told you that just 10 minutes of focused practice a day could literally, physically change the structure of your brain? The science here is absolutely fascinating, so let's get right into it.
No, I mean, really think about that for a second. What if you weren't stuck with the brain you have right now? What if you had the power to reshape your habits, your skills, even your ability to focus, all at a biological level? Well, spoiler alert, you totally can.
All right, so to really get how this is possible, first we've got to bust a huge, long-standing myth. For decades, what we thought we knew about the adult brain was, well, it was just plain wrong.
So, the old myth was this idea that after your mid-20s, your brain was basically like set concrete, completely hardwired, fixed, done deal. But the real truth we now know, is that your brain is so much more like clay. It's malleable, and it can be molded and reshaped throughout your entire life.
And this incredible ability has a name: neuroplasticity. Now, this isn't just some motivational concept or a self-help buzzword. It is a hardwired biological fact of our nervous system. It's the core mechanism that lets us learn, lets us adapt, and lets us grow, no matter how old we are.
Okay, so if our brain is moldable, how does the rewiring actually happen? Let's get into the mechanics and see how a simple thought can build itself into an automatic, full-blown habit.
You've probably heard this famous catchphrase in neuroscience, and it sums up the whole process perfectly. Every single time you do an action or think a thought, specific brain cells, your neurons, fire up. And when you repeat that action, the same neurons fire again and again, which strengthens the physical connection between them.
Think of it like this. Learning a new skill is kind of like forging a tiny dirt trail in your brain. It's slow, it's clunky, it takes a lot of effort. But with consistent practice, that trail starts to become a paved road. It gets easier, faster, and with enough repetition, it becomes a multi-lane, automatic superhighway. You're not just remembering something, you are physically building new infrastructure inside your head.
Now here's the catch. When you're a kid, this whole process happens almost on autopilot. But for us adults, that window of passive learning has pretty much closed. To intentionally rewire our brains, we need to unlock a very specific chemical cocktail. There's a formula to it. So this formula has 3 absolutely essential ingredients. You need intense focus, which acts like a spotlight. You need a little bit of friction, which is the trigger for change. And finally, you need rest, which is the all-important save button. Let's break each one down.
First up, focus. To learn anything new, your brain needs to release a chemical called acetylcholine. Think of it like a big mental spotlight that tells your brain, hey, pay attention. This thing right here is important enough to change for. And here's the kicker. This chemical only gets released during periods of deep, single-minded focus. So what this means is that multitasking or being distracted literally prevents your brain from even opening the gates to learning. It's a non-starter.
Second, you need friction. You know that feeling of struggle, right? When you're learning something new and you keep making mistakes and it's just frustrating? Most of us think that's a signal to quit, but it's the exact opposite. That feeling of effort is the biological trigger that releases other chemicals, telling your brain it needs to adapt. If what you're doing isn't a little bit difficult, your brain just doesn't see any reason to change.
This was proven in this fantastic experiment. You had these worker rats that had to really struggle and work to get their food, and then you had the trust fund rats, who were just given everything, no effort required. Guess which group showed way more neuroplasticity and resilience? The worker rats, of course. Your brain literally rewards effort with more change.
And finally, we have rest. This might be the most surprising piece of the puzzle. All that hard work you did, the focus, the friction, the actual physical rewiring doesn't happen then. It happens when you are in deep sleep. Sleep is the save button that locks in all the structural changes you worked for. If you skip a good night's rest, you basically lose a huge chunk of the day's progress.
And here's a little bonus tip straight from the research. Just taking a few quiet minutes to reflect after you practice, replaying it in your mind without any distractions, can actually start to solidify those new pathways before your head even hits the pillow. It's like a mini save.
Now, it is so important to understand that this powerful tool we have is a double-edged sword. Neuroplasticity itself is a blind, neutral biological mechanism. It doesn't have a preference for good habits or bad ones. It works both ways. If you spend 10 minutes a day practicing meditation, you are actively, physically building the neural superhighways for focus and for calm. You are choosing what to strengthen. But, and this is a huge but, the exact reverse is also true. If you spend hours every day mindlessly scrolling through short, distracting videos, you are building superhighways for distraction and anxiety. You're training your brain to be incapable of deep thought.
This all comes down to what we call the use it or lose it principle. The neural pathways you use get stronger, and the ones you don't, like maybe the ones for deep focus, will literally get pruned away by your brain to save energy. Every minute of every day, you are choosing which circuits to feed and which ones to starve.
But the absolute beauty of all this science is that it hands the power right back to you. So let's make this real. Let's put this knowledge into practice right now with a simple 10-minute challenge.
10 minutes. That's it. That's all it takes to begin. 10 minutes of intentional, focused effort a day is the barrier to entry for consciously taking control of your brain's wiring.
So here is your challenge for this next week. First, pick one new habit you want to build. Maybe it's learning an instrument, maybe it's meditating, maybe it's just reading a book. Then, give it just 10 minutes of your complete distraction-free focus. When it feels hard, lean into that friction, welcome it, and then make sure you get a great night's sleep to lock it all in.
You know, the most empowering takeaway from all of this is that you are not permanently stuck. Your habits, your focus, your limitations, they are not fixed. You have the biological freedom to decide who you want to become and to start building that person, one neural connection at a time.
So I'll leave you with this final question to think about. Now that you know how the machine works, what new superhighway are you going to start paving in your brain today?